Hi, this is Pete from Ecobee. In this video, we're going to explain the advanced thermostat settings that can only be adjusted at your thermostat. So many of these comfort settings and scheduling can be done through the Ecobee app. A lot of them, however, can only be done at the thermostat. So that's what we're going to cover here today. So to start out, it's going to give you a broad overview of the entire thermostat here. So at the home screen, you've got your mode. Just hit that off. You can switch that over to heat. You're going to see a little flame. That flame's going to turn orange when there is a heat call. So when the furnace is running, you'll see that switch over. Just like with cool, you'll see a little snowflake. So you've got your set point here. Just kind of drag this up and down. It's going to put it on a hold. It's going to notify you it's holding. You've got weather data. So this is a nice little screen right on the home menu here. It's going to give you the weather information based on your geographical location. So whatever zip code your thermostat is registered to, that's the weather report you're going to see here. You've got your quick changes, the little wheel. So within this menu here, you can go ahead and you can select, hey, I'm home for now. So I want to make a quick change. I'm away for now, I'm leaving, right? You can switch the fan over from automatic to just on, where it's going to run constantly. Turn that fan on right away. And then you're going to see at the bottom here each HVAC equipment that is running. So you've got your fan running now, you've got the system running the AC. Moving right along here, if we click on the microphone, if you are using the Ecobee 4 or now the new Ecobee Smart Thermostat Pro, you've got that Amazon Echo speaker built right into the thermostat. You're going to see this microphone. This is where you can configure the volume for that speaker. You can mute it. So if you click off, it's going to turn the light at the top of the thermostat red. It won't be listening at that point. You can manually push to talk here so Alexa can hear you. That's useful if there is background noise or something going on where the speaker's not picking up your voice. You can kind of manually trigger it. If you are using the 3 light, you're not going to see that microphone option because there is no speaker built in. I didn't mention as well, you see your humidity level here and plus your room temperature. So if we go into the main menu, you've got a lot of these same options. So you can go into your HVAC equipment and you can switch it over from heat to cool to auto. You can go in and you can adjust your fan run time here. So this is going to be the minimum minutes per hour that you want that fan running. A lot of people like to take it all the way up, run it almost constantly throughout the hour. It's going to help with ventilation throughout the house. With the humidifier, so I've wired this thermostat up to utilize all stages. So it's a 2 heat, 2 cool with a heat pump. And we've also got a humidifier wired up. So with the humidifier, you're going to be able to go in and adjust that here, turn it on. It's going to ask you to set your preferred humidity level, usually somewhere around 40%. We recommend 36. It's going to depend a lot on the time of year. If you don't want to have to worry about constantly adjusting that throughout the year, you can always use the frost control option. And this option is going to look at the outdoor weather. It's going to look at the temperature. It's going to make those humidity adjustments automatically based on the outdoor temperature changing. So nice feature built in. We call it frost control. It's because it's going to prevent condensation building up on your windows, on the ceiling. Certain times of year we do hear stories from homeowners where it's actually raining in the house because the humidity is so high and it's very cold outside. So if you're using that frost control feature, you're going to avoid any problems like that. Moving right along into the sensors here. So if you do have multiple sensors added, I don't have any unfortunately connected to this thermostat, but if you did have many room sensors, you're going to see each of those sensors listed out. You're going to see if the space they're in is occupied, unoccupied. You're going to see the room temperature at each sensor here. You're going to have the ability to go in and adjust the Smart Home Smart Away feature. So Smart Home Smart Away means that if the Ecobee senses through our occupancy sensors that no one's in the house, it's going to go into a soft setback. This is going to vary a little bit based on how you're using it and how you've programmed it. But typically after about 2 hours, the thermostat will go into a setback and it will allow that room temperature to rise or fall based on the outdoor weather, based on your equipment configuration. A lot of different factors that kind of go into that setback calculation. You can, however, turn it off. So if people want to walk in the door and have it exactly 72 degrees when they walk in, you can disable this. It's not going to go into that setback whether there's occupancy or no occupancy. In this case, it will operate more like a traditional thermostat would. So I'm going to back out here. I'm going to go into the schedule. So the schedule is a lot easier to control through the mobile app or on a computer at ecobee.com if you log into your account. I really recommend using a phone or a tablet ideally to adjust your schedule. It's just a lot easier. However, you can do everything here at the thermostat. So you're going to see each comfort setting. You're going to be able to go in and adjust those times. If I were to hit the trash can here, it's going to delete it. So we'll try to delete that one. We'll go out. So now you can just see sleep and home. I've removed that away setting. You can copy each of these settings over to other days of the week, right? So if you've already set up your schedule for Monday, what's really convenient about this is you can just copy Monday. You can apply it to these other days throughout the week. Save it. It's going to push that update to the thermostat. With the plus sign here, this is where you can add in a new setting. So if you want to go ahead and add that away setting back, let's say you're going to leave early next Monday, 5 a.m. for a flight, save it, going to pop in there into your schedule. Going back to the comfort settings now. So within the schedule, you see those comfort settings, home, sleep, away. In this screen, this is where you're going to be able to go in and adjust those preferences for each setting. To create new comfort settings, you have to do it online or through your mobile app. You can't actually create a new one at the thermostat. It's another reason why we recommend to try to do it on your phone if you can. But in here, you can go in, you can adjust the heat. So if you want it a little cooler when you're home, adjust the AC down when you're home in the summertime. You can have the fan run constantly or just on an automatic mode. Save that setting, go in, update each of these. The vacation mode, this is a nice feature. With the vacation mode, you've got your weekly schedule, right, which is going to be a consistent pattern each week. Your weekly schedule should be set up on your typical schedule. So when you're typically going to work, when you're typically coming home, the vacation feature is going to be used for sort of those one-off events, so like a one-time event where come January, maybe you're going to head down to Florida, you're going to take the family to Disney World. You go ahead, you add that vacation. It's going to ask you, when do you depart? You say, I'm going to depart, right after New Year's. Save that. Put the time in and everything. And what this is going to do, it's going to ask you to configure what you want those preferences to be. So you can take the heat down, you can go into like a manual setback, right? If it's the summertime, turn the heat off, turn the AC on, let it get pretty warm in the house when you're not there. You can even set up how often you want that fan running to kind of keep up the air circulation in the house when no one's there. So a lot of people will just turn it off. What this means is during this period, when you depart on January 2nd and you return, let's say January 7th, the thermostat's just going to manually hold those preferences. So it's going to hold that set point, whatever you've told it to. It's going to ignore any occupancy. So if there's any motion, any occupancy read out of room sensors, what this means when it's in vacation mode, it's going to completely ignore that. So it's going to act just like a traditional thermostat in that it will just hold that set point. So if you have someone coming in the house to check your mail, someone that's coming to walk the dog or something, the system will not kick on based on an occupancy read. So this is a nice feature. Moving right along here, reminders and alerts. So reminders, you're going to see any reminders or alerts posted here that are open. If there were one, you go in, you can kind of clear them out once you read them. These are all driven by the preferences that are programmed into the stat. So we recommend you go through and you kind of set your dates. So most of these will default to enabled. You can always disable each of them if you don't care about seeing that reminder to get your HVAC serviced. We recommend you set between 6 and 12 months typically. A lot of times, this is going to be the contractor that's going to be setting this up. So every 12 months, our last service date was March this year. So that means March 2020. Homeowner's going to get a reminder via email. It's going to pop up on the thermostat. It's going to say, it's been a year since you've had your HVAC serviced. Time to get it looked at again, right? Same with a furnace filter reminder. You can do frequency and time. You can also choose runtime hours. You could say every 500 hours furnaces run, I want that filter changed, right? And that's going to push that reminder out to the homeowner, to the contractor, and let them know time for a new filter. So you can see just kind of going along here, you've got a reminder for an accessory. So humidifier, ventilator, dehumidifier, you can turn that on and you can set up those same preferences as far as frequency and your last service date. UV lamp, high and low temperature alerts. So it's going to default to 50 and 92 for your high temp. Go in there. We always recommend that you have these enabled. A lot of times people have these nightmare stories. Pipes freeze in the middle of winter time. Maybe they're down in Florida. They're snowbirds. Come back, the house is flooded. It's a complete disaster, right? So this is going to help you eliminate those sort of problems. So we would say if you never want the house to be below 55, then go ahead and set that at 50. Take it down another 5 degrees. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of notifications every time it goes from 55 to 54 degrees. Maybe the heat kicks back on. It's going to bring that temperature back up. So go about 5 degrees beyond your normal or your ideal lowest, coolest, or warmest temperature in the house. So low temperature, same for high temperature, right? You've got, with a heat pump, auxiliary outdoor temperature alerts. So you can turn these on, you can disable them. This means that when the auxiliary heat is above or below a certain temperature threshold, it's going to notify you, right? You can adjust that outdoor temperature here. You can go in, you can do auxiliary runtime alerts. So same concept, except this means that when the auxiliary heat is running for so many hours, it's going to notify you. We get a lot of calls on this. Defaults to 3 hours. It's a little low. It's kind of playing it safe on our end. A lot of times, you could have that auxiliary heat running for 5-6 hours. There's probably not a problem. It's just going to notify you and remind you that your auxiliary heat is running. And maybe you're spending a lot of money depending on if that heat is electric, right? So with humidity, you've got the same preferences. You can turn that off. You can adjust that low humidity, high humidity. We would probably recommend somewhere around 30% for your lower end, higher end somewhere around 55. When we reach the 60% humidity level, that's when mold can begin to grow. So something to just kind of go in, keep in mind, adjust these. You can even disable alerts at the thermostat. So whenever there is an alert and this is enabled, you're going to see on the menu, the screen's going to turn white. It's going to tell you what's going on. You can turn that feature off. You're still going to get an email. Your contractor will still receive that email as well. And then heating and cooling alerts are basically logic driven. So based on runtime data that we collect, if your air conditioning has been running for 8 hours, but the indoor temperature is rising, this is where it's going to trigger one of those alerts, right? So it's not necessarily communicating, it's just looking at that runtime information. Now we've got our advanced settings. So in the settings menu, you can adjust your time and date. This should automatically update once you're on Wi-Fi. You can go in, you can adjust that heating and cooling range, right? So you can switch it over to Celsius. You can go and within 12 degrees, I think, is the minimum. You can set these ranges. So this is going to say, okay, I never want the user to adjust the set point above 71 degrees in the wintertime, right? That's warm enough. We don't need it any hotter in the house. Same with the AC. If you never want it to cool below, let's say 69, 70 degrees, that's where you go in, you'd save that there. It's going to lock the user out from running the equipment past that point. So they'll never be able to cool below 69. You can change the name of the device here. So you've got a lot of default names, and you can actually enter your own name and you can custom name them. I think this one we're calling my Ecobee, so I'm going to leave it there. You can disable sounds for Alexa. So when you give commands to Alexa, a lot of times you're going to get this chime, which is like a feedback that she understood what you told her, and it just gives you that gratification. You know, turn my lights on. It's going to hear the chime. That means the lights went on, right? If that is annoying, you can turn that off. So she's still going to talk to you. You're just not going to get that feedback. Brightness, you can go in, adjust your brightness in standby. What I like to do is my thermostat's in the hallway. It kind of glows at night. I've turned this off, so when no one is near the thermostat, it's going to completely power down the display. It's going to look like it's not even on, but it is functioning in the background. Same with your active screen. You can adjust this up or down. You can use the option to check this box here and it'll sleep in sleep mode. So just like I said, where I turn it off in standby, you can do that where you're using a schedule, and during your sleep comfort setting, it's going to automatically power down. Your active to standby screen timer, that's just going to allow you to adjust, you know, how quickly you want it to go into that standby. Hold action, you can adjust 2 hours, 4 hours, until your next scheduled event. So if you set up a schedule, let's say you put it on a hold during your home period, and then, you know, at 9 o'clock you go to sleep. Well, then if you use this option, it's going to go back, it's going to revert back to the next scheduled event. You can use the option to indefinitely hold it. You can even have it decide, so it's going to ask you when you change the set point, it's going to ask you how long do you want to hold it. So a few different ways to manage that. Smart recovery. So this is something you can also turn on, turn off. This is something where, you know, if you have it on, your Ecobee is going to automatically start heating or cooling your home, try to reach that desired temperature in the house that you want proactively. So some of what's going on here is going to be things like your energy cost, your peak demand throughout the day. It's going to take a lot of those factors into consideration. You can configure your Wi-Fi here. You can turn that Wi-Fi network off, or that radio. You can go in, you can switch the network. This is where you'll see each network kind of listed out here. You can use an iPhone, iPad, or an iPod. If it's an Apple device that is on Wi-Fi, you can automatically connect the thermostat to that Wi-Fi network through one of these Apple devices. This is part of Apple HomeKit. This is going to be a nice shortcut because you will never need to know what the password is for their network. You never have to get that 20-digit crazy 20-character number off the router, and you'll never have to know if the homeowner forgets their password. You'll never have to figure out what that is if you're using that option. Diagnostics is just going to be, you know, an error log. You can manually ping our gateway. This is something that if you call in a tech support, sometimes they may have you do some things in there to try to understand what's going on if you've got a problem connecting to our servers. Finally here, you've got access control, so you can enable a security code. I'll do 1111, just like all my bank accounts. Save that, and then you can go ahead and you can kind of pick and choose what you want to lock people out from changing. So if they do know the code, they're going to have full access to the thermostat. If they don't know the code, you can say, I only want you to be able to adjust temperature, vacation settings, right? Maybe comfort settings, you have to pick one, or everything. So we'll go ahead, we'll lock them out of everything. And then you can always reset the thermostat here. So you've got the option to reset just the registration. I'm not going to do that. So in the event that someone moves, but the thermostat stays in the house, this is a nice way to just reset who's going to control that thermostat without reconfiguring any HVAC equipment. You can reset just your schedule and your preferences, your comfort settings. You can disconnect from Apple HomeKit if you're an Apple user, or you can do a hard reset. If you click Reset All, it's going to ask you, do you want to do a factory reset? It's going to completely wipe the stat like it's brand new in the box. So we're not going to do that today. I'm going to go back out here. I think I went one too far here. So installation settings. This is really where we can dive the deepest, but you've got a lot you can configure in here. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a warning, or I don't know what the right word is, but just sort of a general advisory that if you're going to be adjusting these settings, you definitely want to consult your professional HVAC technician. This is really intended for your HVAC contractor to go in and configure. So always just want to kind of mention, we don't really recommend that homeowners try to reconfigure these settings with the equipment. There is always that potential that something is adjusted where it could potentially cause damage to your HVAC equipment. So always consult a professional contractor, but nonetheless, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what options you've got in here. So with your equipment, you've got things like wiring. You can adjust the wiring configuration. You can adjust your equipment setup. So right now we've got a 2-stage heat pump. We're energizing on cool. We're using auxiliary heat simultaneously, so you can have the heat pump and your backup heat running at the same time. You've got your furnace settings here, right? So how do you want to control your fan on the furnace? Do you want to use the thermostat? Do you want that furnace to just control the fan by itself, what's built into the control board on the equipment? And then finally, your humidifier. So one little thing that I always like to talk about in our trainings is with the humidifier, you basically always want to choose the steam setting, because if you're using evaporative, what that means is the humidifier is only going to run during a heat call. So that humidifier accessory will only kick on when the furnace is running, basically, if you're using evaporative. If you go ahead and switch it over to steam, doesn't matter if you have an evaporative humidifier or a steam humidifier. The only difference in the settings is that you will be able to condition running that humidifier whether or not there's a heat call. So that humidifier in the fan is going to kick on. It's going to maintain that humidity set point. It's not going to matter if the furnace is running or if there's a call for heat, right? So we always kind of recommend you use steam. You've got your runtime deltas here. So again, going back to talking about equipment and potentially damaging it, this is known as short cycling. So this is where you've got to be careful about short cycling, and you've got to set up those minimum runtime deltas accordingly. Window efficiency kind of goes back to the frost control. This is where you can actually adjust that frost control feature. So if I adjust it to a 3, it's going to mean when the maximum indoor humidity will be 28% when the outdoor temperature is 12 Fahrenheit. So it's pretty cold outside. It's not going to let that humidity get real high in the house because you're going to start getting condensation building up. You can kind of adjust this as high up to when it's 12 degrees out. Indoor 72 is going to be 50% humidity in the house. So it's going to be pretty high during the winter time at a 7. Probably recommend you keep it at like a 3 or 4. All right, so moving right along, you've got an option here to reconfigure that equipment. We can go ahead and do that real quick. I'll probably just use the same settings I had before, but you're going to go ahead and confirm all your wiring, confirm your accessory, right? Is it a 1-wire accessory, a 2-wire accessory, Fahrenheit, Celsius? What kind of heat pump is it? Air to air? Is it a geothermal system? How do you want to energize that system on heat or on cool? Most systems are going to be cool, but again, always refer to your professional HVAC contractor. Your heat pump and auxiliary heat can run simultaneously. We already mentioned this. Do you want to use minimum outdoor temperature threshold for your compressor? So you can adjust this. You can set it to automatic. You can turn it off. You can define exactly what that temperature should be. It's going to ask you to confirm what type of heating. So furnace, boiler, right? How do you want to run that fan? We already talked about that a little bit. The main difference here is going to be if you choose thermostat, you're going to have that instant gratification to turn the fan on right away. If you're using the equipment, at times you're going to see some delays as far as runtime with the fan. It could take a little time with a variable speed system for that fan to kind of ramp up and ramp down. So most of the time with newer furnaces, probably going to want to use the equipment, but again, this is really up to your contractor to decide. We talked about the humidity settings, and I think that's pretty much it. So thresholds. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but again, with your contractor, this is where they're going to be able to go in and set up a lot of those equipment settings to keep you comfortable in your house, right? So things like your auto. So if you're using like an auto switch over, right? You can set that dead band. It's going to default to 5 degrees between heat and cool to switch over. You can adjust that down to 2. You can adjust it up to 10, I believe. Yep. Your staging, you can set it up to be automatic. You can set it up manually. If you switch this over to manually, you're going to see a lot of extra features, a lot of options pop up here, like your auxiliary runtime information. You're going to see compressor minimum cycle times. So 300 seconds is what it's going to default to, 5 minutes. You've got the ability to do like an AC overcool max, where if you want to use the condensing unit to dehumidify the house, you can overcool up to 5 degrees to keep that humidity under control in the summertime. A lot of different options here. You can adjust your differential. This is going to be the minimum differential before the heating kicks back on. So in between cycles, how far it's going to let that room temperature creep before the furnace runs again, or the heat pump. Dissipation time. So after the heat call is off, how long do you want that fan to keep running to keep that warm air flowing? Your auxiliary minimum on times, right? So you can adjust these. Going to default to 5. Again, want to be careful. Shouldn't probably be messing with this unless your contractor has advised you to. Cool differential. So minimum temperature for cooling, just like we talked about with heat. So the minimum temperature difference before the AC is going to kick on in between cycles. Dissipation time, same as heating, just how long you want that fan to run with cool air instead of warm air. Your compressor on time, so again, it's going to default to 5 minutes. Adjusting this incorrectly could potentially cause damage. Same with reverse staging, right? This is something that your contractor is really going to want to set up for you. As far as how to advance between first stage to second stage, your run time, your compressor temperature deltas, this is all stuff we would want to refer to a professional on. One thing that is nice here that I'll mention, if you know that thermostat is off a degree, you can manually correct that temperature read here. Up or down, same with humidity, plus or minus 10%, I believe it is. If you know the RH level is a little off at the thermostat, you can go in and correct it here. You've got a thermal protect option, so the minimum temperature reading between sensors and thermostat. I had this happen to me. My daughter took the sensor. She thought it was a new toy, went outside with it, and thermal protect kicked in. It was very warm outside. It was like 85 degrees. It was only 72 in the house, and it actually alerted me that you've got a 13-degree difference between your room sensor and your thermostat. So something's wrong, right? Someone left the window open. Maybe there's a fire, God forbid not. But that's what that feature is for. And then finally, you've got an installer code. So if you enable this installer code, the installer code is always going to be the same. It's always going to be the same number. It's 3262. You can find this on our website. This is really intended for the installer as your professional to go in. They can enable this code. It's going to prevent homeowners from going in and changing any of these equipment settings that could potentially cause some damage, right? So again, always refer to your professional contractor on those questions. For a contractor, you can also test the equipment. So you can manually run a cycle with any of this. You can turn it on, kick on first stage, go straight to second stage with your heat pump. You can go straight into your auxiliary heat. So anytime, the contractor kind of wants to to do some troubleshooting, some diagnosing, this is what they can do to manually kick on that equipment. I think that's about it, guys.